everybody. Welcome to the photography club here. Want to get the right name. We don't want to confuse people. It is the 30th of January, and we've got a good crew, as you can see. We got some Zoomers as well, which is great. And to start the party off, we've got Daryl, who's got a quick goodie to talk about. Come on up here so people can see you. Don't hide. You can just stand there or sit here. Sit here. I don't care. That's
right there, Daryl. Okay. Front and center.
There you go. Okay, let's talk about this. You put together a little goodie.
So I had I don't know, a couple thousand slides or shots of owls.
Okay.
And I just wanted to put a nice little presentation together.
And you've done this. You're on Apple.
Yep.
And you've done this with the Photos program.
Yeah.
And so it's, in a sense, it's automated, and what you want to do is get a little feedback and then also learn what you can do differently in another program to be more manual, so to
Yeah,
speak.
a lot of the things go like I titled it owls. It
Okay.
starts abruptly. It
Sure.
needs to be, a better title. I
Okay.
don't know if you can change the location of where
Sure.
it goes. Things that I don't know about. And then definitely the way it starts is abrupt.
Sure.
And the way it ends is abrupt. And
Sure.
I need to smooth that out and get better transitions. So
Okay, well, let's take a look at it, and then we will go from there.
When I gave my heart to a tinker boy, he said a fish could love a swallow, and I will go with my traveling man wherever he goes. I will follow. He will mend your pots and pans, your kitchen knives he'll take and sharpen, and I'll be gone with my traveling man, and nevermore your doorway darken. Oh, the fish and the bird who fall in love will find no place to build a home in. The fish and the bird who fall in love are bound for
Well, I mean, as an automated thing, it's fine in terms of there's some nice dissolves that are going on between the pictures. Really, I think it's just a matter of getting out of this automated mode where the program is doing all the work for you, right? And getting you into like iMovie and saying, okay, now we want to add like a fade up at the front end and at the back end. We want to adjust the music accordingly, just in terms of fading up, fading down, whatever. Was the music something that Apple had or something you had?
It's mine. It's not.
It's copy free.
It's not. No, it's not. I don't think I can put it on YouTube.
Well, we just did. Apparently, we might get dinged on that. This may not show up. That's okay. Well, that's like rule number one when it comes to,
It
doing
was
these.
it was just for me.
Yeah, I understand. But it's just a matter of saying, okay, you want to get this to a point where you're gonna put it out there so people can see it. Somebody like Chuck would like to share this on Showtime. So having copyright free or royalty free music, which there's plenty of sources that we have. So anyway, it's just a matter of getting you into a program outside of photos. And we were just talking with Jim about this too, learning a little bit about iMovie. So maybe what we'll have to do is have some sort of a little class in here and say, okay,
Or you could do a separate class of 3, 4 people
yes,
and actually use iMovie.
and that's what I would be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a question off the subject, but
yeah.
from Chuck. Chuck, are you asking for, are you rejecting stuff that has copyrighted music in it?
No, I don't pay any attention to that.
I just wondered, I didn't know.
Do we, well, we record Showtime, don't we, Chuck? And put that on YouTube?
Yes, we do. We do.
Okay. I guess the thing, and that's maybe something to be thinking about, just so we don't get dinged. Right. Sometimes there are restrictions on music, and it may say we can't show this in Germany or something, okay, fine. But there's other times where they just flat out, they completely reject the video.
So Germany's out?
Yeah.
Just checking.
You know, the last time I submitted something to YouTube, there was copyrighted material, but they notify you of that. But that's all that happens. They don't reject it.
It
At least I
depends.
haven't had anything rejected.
Try putting something out from the Rolling Stones and watch how fast that gets gunned down. Anyway, go ahead.
Are there any requirements that are generally accepted if people are putting things on the internet or they're putting it through YouTube on the internet, that at the end of a program like his session here, you would give credits for whatever it is that you used, the person that made the music and whatever else is in your presentation that is somebody else's stuff?
No,
You don't have to give any credits on it.
well, I should say, there are exceptions. Sometimes, I'm trying to remember who did it. Was it Todd Taylor or somebody had talked to some person and they said, oh, you can use it. We're happy to let you use it. Just give us a credit at the end. So if you're using royalty-free music or copyright-free music, you don't have to do that.
I pull stuff off the sites all the time and say, if you use this, then you have to put this exact information
Right.
in your description, which I do.
Yeah.
Well, Creative Commons, if you look at things that are licensed under Creative Commons, which is generally fair to use, but they will restrict it to, non-commercial and then give me a credit.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have very specific things. And like you said, they want to see the credit exactly the way they.
Right.
Yeah, they want link to the website,
Sure,
and everything in there, so that, what they're doing is they're getting advertising for their music.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. The other thing is, and you can't make any money off of it,
Right.
or you gotta pay somebody, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you?
One thing I noticed, there was one picture of an owl head on, and it had bright red eyes.
Yeah.
So you need to put that into a photo program and do the red
Actually,
eyes.
I love it. I want it. I want the zombie owl. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good, that's good.
I flash. I was very pleased to be there.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I thought the red eyes, the redness, that looked
Right.
great.
Sure.
And it wasn't that dark, so
Owl eyes will do that.
Yeah. Yeah, sir.
Well, it's just a reflection of
I think that those pictures, especially some of the horizontals, would be, in something like that, really would be excellent for having picture in picture, fade in, one fade in, the other one fade out. And as you know, you can do some splendid titles using green screen. And
Sure.
put your picture in Keynote,
Mm-hmm.
and then put it in with green screen, and you have the owl flying through the title or something.
Sure.
What do you mean by green screen?
Well, oh, go ahead.
Well, green screen is where it makes the green part of any image transparent, basically. And so if you have let's say you take a keynote slide and you make this background green and you put a red title in it, like big owls, and you exit it, you export it as a movie, you put it into iMovie, you put it on top of the picture of an owl, and put it in as green screen, and the title shows up, but the green does not. And you do all kinds of neat things with that.
It's compositing.
Yeah.
And you've done it, Jim, with the motorcycle. Remember? That's green screen.
Okay.
You don't.
He knows what it is.
Well, the good thing is,
I don't remember anything.
Never mind.
well, the good thing is that really with any of these editing programs, you don't have to go through that extra step of going through a program like Keynote. The program iMovie or DaVinci or Final Cut that I use, any of these programs, you've got titles that you can pop in, it'll drop right over the top. It's layered, so it layers the different elements that you have. If you had some video, you've got a text layer, if you have a mask, whatever you want to do. So it does save a step in terms of doing stuff.
But the titles that I find in iMovie don't satisfy.
Well, that's okay.
Well, you know, like the fonts or something.
I just keep making do what I want to do.
Well, that's okay though. I think there's nothing wrong with that in terms of saying I want this title to do more than what I can get through in a movie. I'm just saying you don't, if you want to just have a basic title or a little movement or whatever, you can do it within the program.
They are limited.
They are limited. Well, that's why the magic word is free.
Is DaVinci more expansive in terms of what it offers you of things that you can do?
It's so far beyond anything iMovie that
Sure.
it's not even in the same universe.
Talk about learning curve though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it too, is like with anything that you're going to do, we're in the walk versus run stage.
Right.
We're not going to go crazy right out of the box and try to overload you with a bunch of stuff that you're going to go, oh my God, my brain's going to explode, right?
Yeah.
We had a little session on Final Cut for about an hour.
My brain exploded.
Well, yeah. Well, and it's just that thing of you have to do it
1 hour.
like you're doing,
Watch
like
out,
you're
1
doing.
hour your brain would.
Like you're doing this, like you've just done this, which is great. Well, that's a great start. Okay, well now let's go a little further and go a little bit more to an advanced program of iMovie. And we can make some of those adjustments that you're talking about, adjusting music and everything else. And then from there, you can say, okay, these titles are kind of boring. I want to do something that's a little bit more adventuresome.
I think what he's got with his presentation so far is a real boost.
Oh, yes.
Well, we need to recognize that these photographs are fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. You did a great job. I mean, this is really nice stuff.
Some of them are a little soft because they're, you're shooting in such low light
Well,
most
sure.
of the time. A lot of the exposures are under a 30th of a second on some of that stuff.
Well, the very beginning is soft.
They agree on good work.
What camera, what fundamental setting in the camera are you using to take most of the owl pictures?
It changes. I mean, sometimes I'm shooting at a 16,000th of a second or 1600th of a second to as low as a 1/6 of a second.
With what kind of camera?
Oh, I'm using a Nikon and I have a 300-2.8
Okay.
on a 1.4. But a lot of these were set up on a tripod. You notice the bird bath. There's a bird bath there. And then there's a stump. Oh,
Sure.
My girlfriend had imprinted with these owls for the last 6 years. They keep having new babies, and she brings the babies down to the water. And I actually set my camera up on a tripod. Some of it with just a 50mm lens that's maybe 4 feet away with a remote trigger.
Huh?
And
Well, you did a great job.
I would agree.
and you never know whether they're in focus because
Right.
or if or
Sure. Yes, sir.
but the pictures are good, but you should be shooting video.
No, not for that. That'd be a complete pain in the ass.
Slow motion.
Right?
I have some video, I have some iPhone video of, the owl going down and getting,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and you could incorporate some of that into a presentation
But
like
in
this.
stills, I mean, you can really
Yeah.
look at the details of the
Yeah.
bird. That's what I would say. Every picture went away too fast. I want
Yeah.
to look at the bird more.
So is this a
Yeah.
vacuum kind of thing?
Grace, what do you think?
Well, I was just going to say I love the photos. I think I agree with you that lightening up a little bit, because there's so much detail that's kind of lost with them being so dark, that the owls are gorgeous, and maybe just lightening them a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think those are things that when you think of putting like a presentation like this together, it's stages. It's like, okay, I'm going to bring the photos into Photoshop or a photo editing program, and I'm going to get them, looking correct in terms of exposure, sharpness, whatever I'm going to do. Then you put that in a folder and say, okay, now I'm going to import that into my editing program, and then we're going to build the presentation. And now I want to add some music. Okay, select something that's appropriate that you like, and away you go.
Is there some automated way to do that the program will tell you that the light levels are appropriate, or it's too dark, it analyzes your whole, something like a AI program?
I'm not a fan. Automation to me is fine if it works, but it's kind of like if you're shooting, just as a quick sidebar, I shoot raw for my still photos. If there's when you're using the Adobe Camera Raw window, there's all these adjustments you can make, and there's an automatic setting. You can click on it, it'll adjust contrast, exposure, everything. Well, sometimes it does an okay job. Other times let's say there's a bunch of black in the shot and you've got a white object. Well, it's either the black is going to be pure black, or the white is going to be overexposed. So I'm not necessarily, personally, I'm not a fan of using automatic. So when we talk about like this photos program, the computer is doing all this work. Well, I want to leave those images up longer. I want to add more of a dissolve. I want to fade up. I want to do all these things. Well, that's why we get into a manual mode. And
Well, you could histogram everything,
yes,
but you can go nuts with it.
right. Yes, sir.
I think it's this coming Wednesday. Al Crawford is restarting the Lightroom in Photoshop.
Oh, okay.
And they're gonna have a discussion about, well, what are we gonna do with this SIG?
Okay.
What kind of things are we gonna work with to learn
Yep.
about? So if any of you are interested in getting deeper into Lightroom and Photoshop, coming on Wednesday would be interesting to give your input about what you'd like.
Boy, does he know Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy.
is it a morning or an afternoon?
Morning.
Good.
Yeah. 9:30 is starting it, yeah.
Well, it's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's just a matter too of you get into these programs and you don't know anything about it. You have to just try it a little bit, play with it a little bit. We talked about that with Final Cut, and you play with stuff. And okay, I like what this does. I don't like what it does. And then you just keep advancing up the ladder.
And then you get in big trouble.
Yes, you can. So anyway,
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah.
I was just going to add one thing about titles, because yes, I know iMovie is very limited, but you can create your own titles in like PowerPoint and do whatever you want. Take a screenshot of them; they turn into a PNG, and then put those in.
sure. Yeah, there's lots of options. The beauty of all of this, it's like, 1 and 1 equals 2. Well, we can get there many different ways. So we don't have to do everything the same way. We don't have to use the same programs. So I think that's a good thing. Does anybody have anything else on that? Yes, sir.
Well, you're throwing out a couple of different programs, there's DaVinci and iMovie.
Mhm.
And I think it's a matter of being able to not master, but at least get into one of these as a beginner,
like you had mentioned, and being able to use it before you get in over your head. So, and your thought, though, which one of these two, for example, because there may be others, but you
Sure.
which would be like a beginning type thing to learn the basics of putting together a documentary or a slideshow.
Sure.
And I use Apple, so
Okay. Well, I think the way to look at it is, if it was me and I'm starting out and I don't know anything about these programs, but I think that I may advance, so to speak, and as time goes on, get a little better and better and better. If it was me, then I would probably start with DaVinci, because you're going to progress and learn that program. If you start with iMovie and you just say, you know what, I just want to put some little videos together or some slideshows, and that's all I ever want to do. I don't want to get into any of this other stuff. I want the program to do a lot of the work for me. Then I would start with iMovie.
so can you get into DaVinci without getting it over your head right off? I mean, can you start making some things and doing some things that you see some results?
Sure.
Because, you don't want to study for 2 weeks to
Get frustrated.
get frustrated.
I think DaVinci might be
A little much.
too deep.
Okay.
The reason, a little I know about iMovie is that it does not, and Grace will disagree with this, but does not really prepare you for the real editors.
That's correct.
Because it puts things together in an entirely different way than Final Cut Pro.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to stay with Apple,
Right.
or if you're going to go with
Pro and iMovie are the same.
They're a little bit similar, but I think it's a thing of just what your comfort level is. The thing that is nice about a lot of these programs too, they do have tutorials, like a getting started video, and it'll kind of walk you through the template of what the screen looks like and stuff. So there are stuff. There's also the other thing I always talk about too is, if I'm stumped on something, I type the question into YouTube. Somebody's got a video on it to answer that question on how to do something.
It's amazing.
So I'll respond to Phil's comment that because I've used iMovie for so many years, that jumping into Final Cut with Kevin, there were so many similarities that translated over, that it made going to Final Cut a little easier than just starting out with it to begin with. That would have been over.
I've just seen it.
Yeah.
I thought it was so horrible and it would be just a nightmare to move to a real editor, that I wouldn't recommend it. But you have that experience that I don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kevin was a good teacher, so he would, we went step by step with the few things that I wanted to do in my first movie and so forth. But the layout is very similar, and many of the things they translate over.
And that's a big deal.
Well, sure. It certainly makes it a little easier when you kind of know your way around just a little bit, seeing the timeline and all the where things are and stuff. And all these programs are somewhat similar in terms of how they have their layout, but there's just fine points in terms of how things are done that from program to program.
Final Cut costs you money though, right?
Yes.
Okay, where DaVinci doesn't.
DaVinci, there's a free version, and then if you want to step up to the pro version.
But the free version
Does
is around 90%
Yeah.
of the pro version.
So
There are
Final,
just some export things I don't have.
so go iMovies, Final Cut, the Final Cut costs you how much?
I think, what is it? 300
now. $2.99.
What?
Yeah, it's $2.99. It's
Is that for a year or for?
Forever.
Forever.
Well, I think I got it for 300 something, or maybe. There was anyway.
What's that?
I think it's a flat computer.
Sure. You can, I have it loaded here on my laptop, which I use on the
No, what
road.
I mean is, you can put it on file.
Yes.
Computer
Yeah, 5C.
Is your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your life.
Okay.
Adobe is the only one that charges you monthly forever.
Right.
And it's terrible. I mean, it's great stuff.
Bastards.
Yeah.
They're ripping us off.
And I talked to them, they aren't gonna take.
Yeah.
They just said, absolutely, we're making
Like
some
renting versus buying.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm too old to rent.
That's right. Well, I think the one thing that we may end up doing, we've already got it sounds like we have two people that want to learn a little bit about iMovie. And maybe we have, like I said, great idea about, we got 3, 4 people that want to come into the club. We'll go in on the iMac and we'll import some pictures. We'll kind of show just make a basic slideshow, just like Daryl was just doing with his owl photos.
Yeah.
And then add some music, add a title, and then let everybody start to play with it a little bit and just try with their own stuff. So I think it's a good idea. Okay. Does anybody have anything else on that? All right. I have one to share. This is from my trip to San Diego back right before Christmas. This is in the Old Town area of San Diego. Shot this all with the iPhone. So there's some video and stills. And when I shoot my stills with the iPhone, I'm shooting in RAW so I can make adjustments in Photoshop.
If you're working with a cell phone,
Yep,
as so many, all of us are doing.
sure.
Is there more of a preferred or a program that people might tend to go to develop presentations because they're working out of a cell phone to get their stuff out? Is there a connection?
My assumption would be that if you have an iPhone, you probably have Apple computers.
Yeah.
And importing those photos into the computer is very easy. People usually tend to have an Android, probably or PC people. Yes, sir.
You said you shot raw on your camera?
Yep, on my iPhone.
How do you, that's what I meant. How do you do that?
Well, it's the you have
iPhone 13.
yeah, the iPhone 13 Pro version of it. It's not on the regular phones. So anyway, it's something that
Samsung 22 does that too.
I didn't realize they shot raw.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. Well, when you see this, you'll go, "Wow!" On the still photography, I'm blown away by the quality. I even shot 4K video on this, and it's like can't complain about that. So, but make sure you turn off and stop recording because otherwise you're eating up a lot of bandwidth. All right, so here we go. Let's look at this. Here you go.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it was fun.
One thing I noticed though is depth of field issues with that lens. Now,
You mean in Photoshop?
Did you do that? How much
Oh,
Yeah, how much did you do after the fact?
Yeah.
sure, it's a lot of it's in post.
Screwing around. They're giving you infinite depth of field most of the time. for that, right?
It depends on the amount of light you have. Obviously, if there's very low light and you click the focus, you can tell the camera where to focus, then it's going to be a little bit more selective.
So it was wide open or whatever at that, the point where, as an example, you had that sign that was out and then
Right.
this stuff on the left was sharp as can be. I thought maybe you tore it apart in Photoshop, but you didn't.
No, I am going in Photoshop and I'm playing with color and blur and basically creating my own selective focus that I normally might do with a 35mm camera. So
So were you feeling very frustrated? You said, okay, I'm gonna do today with the iPhone, and usually you have your 35, and you're very critical about depth of field. with your
Right.
35. So there you are with your iPhone saying, oh my God, I don't have any control.
No,
Were you
no.
feeling that?
no, not at all. No, because I know that I'm shooting raw and I know I'm going to go in and manipulate these images how I want to.
And you did.
And I
It's
did.
clearly see, really good.
You know, it's a lot easier using an iPhone to do that. If I take my 35mm and I'm taking shots, and then I decide I want to do some video, I gotta put a filter on to knock the light down enough to shoot in a 50th of a second to take video.
You don't have to
I
do
never had
that.
that problem.
You don't have to do that with the else.
That's what I'm saying. It's a lot easier to use the iPhone.
Yeah, but you can select in a manual mode in video on the Canon. You can.
But you have to knock the light down to,
Well, maybe on an older camera you do.
you know, the new camera, if you're shooting like a 24th of a second, basically, or some 24 frames per second, you're supposed to double that, and that's supposed to be your.
You don't.
I've never
I understand. I
tried it.
understand. Well, what I'm saying is, you're setting the camera at a frame rate.
Yeah,
You don't have to go to that extreme. There's many times I've taken my 35mm camera
yeah.
and I just said, okay, I'm going to snap some video.
I've
I've
never
got the
tried
shutter.
it.
I've got the shutter set at 1,000th of a second.
I've
All
never
it's
tried it.
doing is it's adjusting the brightness of the shot,
Yeah,
so you don't have to put a bunch of filtration on.
well, I'm going by what the book says.
Well,
And I'm not doing it.
Ron, there's your problem.
You're right.
No, I do that all the time though, but not Canon, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But with the Nikons, I switch back and forth on a DSLR. I never have any trouble.
Yeah.
It's not bad to go try it.
Well, sure. Yeah, you'll find you could shoot at any f-stop and any shutter speed.
Okay.
Now, you can't go under, let's say, a 30th of a second.
Right.
You can't shoot at an 1/8 of a second or
Yeah,
something in
right.
manual mode.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you don't have to go to the trouble of shooting with filter. I think the biggest thing is, the thing that's so nice about these phones, these iPhones, or just any phone in general that has all this capability now is,
Yeah.
you can sit there and you don't have to drag a camera bag along with, 3-4 lenses.
Well, people just think you're a tourist.
Well, there's that too.
I mean, that's a big factor.
That is, I would agree. And doing people shots, like I'm doing that, well, people aren't like, well, it's just some stupid tourist that's holding out my phone versus the
Yeah.
professional.
Camera.
Is that person, what are they taking a picture? Where's this gonna be?
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. I would agree with that. Yes, sir.
So most of those were still shots. But
Yeah.
You get that movement. I know they have, I've explored at least the Ken Burns
Yep.
method of changing that. Now,
Yes.
is that iMovie, is it easy to do that kind of movement and vary your different slides? One can be moving like you.
Sure.
Another could be just a still. So if it's in there somewhere in the iMovie, if you want to, what do they call that?
Well, it's Ken Burns effect is the movement.
You can do one slide, Ken Burns, and change over to.
You could just have a still picture just come up on frame and not have any movement.
And my editor is called Pan and Zoom.
Yeah.
That's really nice. I was
Yeah.
thinking, when I was watching those owls, I was thinking, wow, it'd been nice if that owl that's flying along by the ground
Yep.
would appear to be moving if you could do what you just did. with it.
Sure. I
So
think
the
that,
camera does that, it automatically fades it up, or do you have to do that?
no, I'm doing that in editing.
You're doing it.
Everything's in editing.
Like I like your, angle shots where you have several of those mixed in. That's
Sure.
a nice feature, but for instance, glass of beer
Mm-hmm.
would have been nice to do that in a video so you could see the
Yes.
bubbles go up, you know.
Well, I was enjoying my beer at that point. I wasn't at the point of saying, you know what, I'm gonna screw around and I'm gonna do this in video. It's like, no, I've got my tacos and my beer. I'm taking a quick picture of this and and really not even necessarily thinking about doing a slideshow or a presentation per se.
What kind of stabilization?
Kevin, I've got a question because
Yeah.
you do a lot of angle shots. Do you shoot them as an angle shot, or are you messing with them someplace else?
No, I am shooting them that way. I shoot them the way that I'm intending them to be. So as an example, my old boss that I worked for, this still photographer many years ago, he always told me, if you're going to tip something or angle it, really tip it to show people that you mean to tip it. As an example, if I've got my 35 millimeter camera and I'm hand holding it and I'm shooting a picture of a horizon, I guarantee you I'm off by 2 degrees, easy, every time. Never going to get it exactly perfect. Well, if I want to tip that angle, I'm really going to crank that angle to really show, hey, this is what I really mean.
The difference between art and a mistake.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah,
I couldn't believe how clear the video was. I mean, just sharp as the beat.
well, that's why I said it's these new cameras are amazing, and the ability to shoot 4K.
Yeah.
I'm editing in 1080, so I have the ability to add movement to that video. I don't have to, pan or move. The stabilization that the cameras have are really pretty darn good. The phone does, in terms of the other trick, and I talked about this before, was I try to find something if I can to lean it against. I lean it on an object like a post or something, a railing, whatever it is. So at least, when I some of those, I'm doing this. Well, I can do that for about 10 seconds and be pretty good, but I'm not going to stand there for a half a minute. I'm going to be. So anyway.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, that's because I didn't say anything. Thank you, Siri. Siri's like, yeah, I'll chime in on that. Yes, Royce, you had
When
something.
you answered the question about stabilization, so you use the phone in built-in stabilization, plus you found a hard object.
The phone, the stabilization's automatic. I don't know if you can turn the stabilization off. Can you, Grace?
I don't think so. I think it's just part of the software.
Yeah.
On that Android S22, it's an option you pick.
Okay.
And you can do different levels of, you can do ultra stabilization.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, instead of having carrying around a tripod or something, just find some object that you can, rest the camera on and away you go. It makes a big difference.
Now, did you do panning in the video with in the post?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where I've got a big 4K image. As an example, like if we do a slideshow, we're talking about, like Jim's talking about a car show that he just did. The pictures are going to be way bigger than if we want to do them in 1080. When I first started shooting video, I would shoot in 1080 because there was no such thing as 4K. And then I would edit in 720, which is still HD. For YouTube, it's more than good. So if you're shooting at a higher file size, so to speak, you can edit at a smaller size. So like that's 1080. It looks great, and I can add movement to photos and to the video. That Ken Burns effect, you can add that to that video. So it's just one of those tricks that I had a wise video person teach me when I started. Yes.
I have a question. Is it that once you shot the photos and the video, how much production time did you have for that beginning? Estimate.
You know, I'm pretty quick. I think I don't know, I would say probably to put that video together, maybe only took me an hour. In doing the Photoshop work, maybe an hour. You know, I look at it, if it's not fun, you know, who cares? You don't want it to be drudgery and have the thing go on for 30 or 40 hours. Then you're so sick of the project, you're ready to have it done. But if you're having fun, I get my drink, I got my music going, I'm doing Photoshop. 2-3 hours goes by like that, and then if that's the case, and then you just put it together. And as you start to put it together, to me, it's exciting to see how it's coming together. And if I'm moving pictures around, oh, maybe I want to, it doesn't have to be. This isn't shot sequentially, meaning that you didn't see the day as it went from the time I got there to the time I left. You can move events around and stuff.
No, don't use Kevin's timeline though. It'll take you a lot longer than that.
when you're learning, it takes longer.
I always figured an hour per finished minute, but that was when I was, Anyway, it takes longer than that for me, for sure.
I think it's just a thing of as you get more comfortable with these programs, you really do. It doesn't take as long. You know what you want to do, and you add the movement or the dissolves if you're going to transitions, whatever you're going to do, your titles, however you're going to do it. Bill had a great, and I did that in this one. He had a suggestion a year or two ago for me, which was great. Hey, find a sign instead of just having the title that says Old Town. Find a sign that says Old Town. And that's the start of your video.
I told you that.
You told me that, and it was good advice. That's why you are the master. I come to you for all things video.
That's great. Yeah, and I could tell when the end was because you came back to the sign.
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw that. It's over. That was great.
Okay. Yes, sir.
What was the locale for that launch? Where was that at?
Old Town in San Diego?
Where's it, let's say the Mission Bay?
It would be southeast of Mission Bay as the crow flies. It's not very far from Mission Bay, maybe 4 miles, maybe. Okay. It's the original part of San Diego. That's apparently where San Diego started. So it's just a neat area. It's kind of a touristy area in a sense, but.
And don't go there when Comic-Con is on.
Yeah, well, that would be bad. But it's just, I think it's part of the fun of going to some of these places and having your phone and not having to drag along a bunch of equipment. I know I'm going to be having beverages, I don't want to be dragging around, got the big heavy camera bag and you're walking around with that all day. It's like, no, I can put the phone in my pocket. I can have my food and beer. I'm happy. Make some pictures, take some video. Life's good.
When you go on a professional job now, you can take your phone and not your camera.
No, they won't pay me if I do that. You have to justify
That's why you bring
fee.
the Facebook.
That's why you bring all that crap.
It's all for show, not for go.
It's all for show.
You would never know.
So, that's a lot of fun though. Sorry, but
You got the iPhone taped on the bottom of your camera.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey, that's an idea.
There you go.
filmmakers, the studios will not accept, they only accept certain cameras.
Sure.
So if you're going to shoot for Netflix, they have a list of cameras and you cannot go outside there.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is nuts.
As long as it looks good, but hey, when
That's not the way they look at it.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. They're paying big bucks for a video or a film. They're going to dictate what they want. So
The Arizona Highways magazine will not accept iPhone.
sure.
They said, they wouldn't say they wouldn't accept. They said it probably won't make it because the resolution isn't up to our standard.
Sure.
Well, for years, if your picture wasn't on a slide, you couldn't send in a digital.
They wouldn't take
They
digital.
wouldn't take it. And finally, after a few years, and that became, so widespread, they started taking it.
Yeah, but this stuff matches, I mean, that matches a leaf or something. I mean,
Right.
there's nothing wrong with those images.
No.
And they certainly would translate to a little magazine.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's just bigotry.
Well,
That's
yeah.
photo bigotry.
Well, they didn't want composite.
Yeah, they don't want composites, I know that.
Right.
All right. Does anybody have anything else on that? Any questions? I've got one more little goodie that I can show to wrap this party up today. I don't know how familiar you are with GoPro cameras, and there is a company out there that makes energy drinks called Red Bull. And Red Bull has this incredible production team that does these videos. And so there's one on that I had seen the other day, and it's like, wow, it knocks my socks off. There's a area that's in North Carolina and Tennessee. It's these windy roads. They call it the Dragon, and it's a big thing for like motorcyclists and car people to go on.
I wore that T-shirt yesterday.
There you go. See? And so anyway, Red Bull closed down the Dragon so they could film. There's a racer, his name is Scott Speed, who's a former Formula One racer. So anyway, they've got tons of GoPros in this. They've got drone going, and it's like these guys do their stuff. So let's see if I can show that to you.
How did you get a hold of this?
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Isn't everything?
Isn't everything? Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Did that take you more than an hour to do?
One last time.
Blow that stuff there. Yeah, that's, I can't even imagine. And you know that they did that a number of times, but they broke it up in sections. They didn't just do it all as one run.
I love those metal shots.
Oh, everything just,
Yeah.
well, and when you think of all the, like you said, all the cameras that they were using, the drones, the GoPros, and then think of the editing and how they varied up those shots and show you stuff, like you said, from the pedals to his shifting to the drone stuff.
I love the overhead map with the clouds and it shows where the car is on the map. Then you got the clouds coming.
The clouds come in, oh, man,
Yeah.
that is so cool.
They really did a nice job. Yes, sir.
How would we generate a map like that?
Well, that's probably,
Well, they started with Google Earth.
they probably
They
do,
might
and
have
then they go in
They might have gotten their own image.
After Effects. Would you go
Oh,
in and animate with After Effects?
There are a lot of programs you can use.
Yeah,
Larry Springford had a class on how to make a map.
Right.
Using. Google.
okay. Yeah, I just,
They might have created their own.
yeah, if you're ever bored or you want to look at stuff like that, if you just go to Red Bull's YouTube page, their production values are amazing.
Something that struck me about that was that there, even in the sequences where the editing was extremely fast, they stuck with nat sound almost all the time.
Yeah.
You know, every time you were looking at an image, you were hearing the sound from the microphone from that device at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
you almost
probably-
never see that because you think, oh, I've got to add music and I've got
Right.
to smooth it out and I've got to carry the sound over here. I've got to do J cuts and L cuts and all this kind of stuff. But that's amazing to actually really use that sound. I think it can teach us that you don't just discard that sound and say, oh, I'll cover all this with music.
Yeah, but I don't think that was though.
Hmm?
I don't think that was that. Somebody did that.
No,
They
I was
they
looking
did
at
the
it.
recording separately.
No, I was looking at it really carefully. I think that there was almost entirely nat sound. There were a couple of audio transitions, but they really did everything they could to go entirely nat sound with that.
I wonder if they,
So there was one exception, and there was slow motion, and
Yeah.
that would
But
not
that
have
was
been.
slow motion. That was
Yes,
nat
yes.
sound.
And that's doable.
yeah,
Yeah, but I'm saying that was their little thing saying, aha, check us out. We're using nat sound entirely. Because that's slow motion with
Yes.
nat sound, slow motion, nat sound.
And I don't know, but was there any hyperlapse on that? Because I have a feeling there was.
they did a little bit,
A little
some
bit.
of it.
Mhm.
I
Just
think
a little bit.
they,
From the satellite on down to the earth,
Right.
they did a sound effect.
sure. Well, I think the other thing that they did too is they probably had some auxiliary recording device for sound, because obviously the drone stuff, there is no sound. Now they may have married up the clips of the GoPro with that, that sequence and said, okay, we can take the sound off of the GoPro, one of the GoPros, and add it to the drone.
I'll bet you they put a sound guy in that car, did many of those turns. Because take a look at the outside stuff where the guy's doing a four-wheel drift or whatever.
Right,
That was recorded by a sound guy with a separate recorder.
yeah. It's interesting. I think it's fun. You can always, it's like looking at commercials or looking at videos like this, and you see what people are doing, and it's like, you learn so much from it, but it also blows you
That's so
away.
good.
Do you think that drone shot where he went under the bridge and up and
Yeah.
down, that was all continuous?
Oh, sure it was.
Yeah.
Well, you could see in there, if you look a couple of times, you could see they have those little, those guys that do the racing drones. That's what they were using for that, because in a couple of shots, you could see,
Talking about the goggles looking over.
well, I don't know necessarily, well, they were doing that, they may have been, but they certainly are flying, and some of those shots where they were behind and then you come up around to the front, and it's crazy to think of.
Wow.
I'm
How those
sure
guys
they-
could fly in those pavilions
Oh, yeah,
inside of those
Yes.
places.
yes, it's crazy.
You know how tough that is.
So, it just, I'm sure they lost a few drones on that, but when you think of the cost of what it costs for them to say, we're gonna shut down this road, you get that clearance to do that, state police are there, now you've got all this crew that's there, they're not just showing up with two guys. and
No,
shooting
it
them.
pays.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And so you think, okay, they're going in, this is a big budget operation. I have no idea how much. Well, Subaru is sponsoring that, you know.
Yeah, what kind of a car was that?
Yeah.
Well,
And Subaru written.
yes. So when you think about it, I mean, that could easily be $100,000, $200,000 video.
Yeah, so
For
where
example,
they play it, I haven't seen it on television, but I don't know where they played it.
well, it's just, they do these, they're for YouTube. It's not really necessarily for commercials, but if you look, they're racing, Red Bull's racing videos from their production company.
They have a video one of a biker guy going down a mountain.
Oh, sure.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And that's fun to watch too.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Well, they know their demographic
Yes.
and they know what appeals to them, and they make these crazy sport films, extreme sports films, just for them.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing that's so neat about it is you have that budget and you say, okay, what's a wacky idea that we can do? And you know, they're sitting around in meetings talking about stuff, and we've done this, we've done that. Okay, what can we do now? And it's like, oh, let's go to the Dragon and we'll shut that down. We'll get a Formula One racer to race this car, and away we go.
Well, didn't they sponsor the Baumgartner, the guy who jumped out at
Yes.
whatever? I think that was a Red
Yes,
Bull.
Alex. Yeah. Or not Felix. That was the leap from space.
Yeah,
That was
Baumgartner.
That's another one to watch. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that's insane.
That was insane.
It's
That
just
was-
insane.
He went to
The guy was moments away from death all the time.
He was up 100. They took him up. They wanted to break the altitude record and jump down from space. There was a guy that did it who just passed away. The guy who had the record passed away just this past year, and he was
I didn't
like,
know he died.
well, he was 80.
The guy did original.
Yeah, he stubbed
Yes.
his toe and got an ingrown toenail.
But he jumped from, I don't know, like 100,000 feet,
And they were trying to break it.
and then they broke it and they went to like 130,000 feet. And he just, if you were able to watch the whole, I was mesmerized watching it live. What they did, they had a checklist, and the guy who originally broke the record was the flight director for Felix's jump,
Oh, really?
which was
Oh,
very
these are
cool.
in,
So anyway, but
well,
yeah.
the guy who originally tried it died. Who was set the, sort of started.
Okay.
He died in the attempt.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, you better be a little crazy today. Well, anyway, all right, we better wrap this up. We're going to tell stories all day. We meet again next Monday on the 6th. We will be here in the club for your Zoomers. We'll look forward to seeing you all as well. Hope everybody has a great week, and I hope people bring some videos. All right. We'll see you later. Bye, everybody.